Hola a todos y bienvenidos a un nuevo episodio de Digital Download. Oops. Good afternoon, good morning, and good day, wherever you may be joining us from. Welcome to a new edition of the Digital Download, the longest running weekly business talk show on LinkedIn Live, now globally syndicated on TuneIn Radio through IBGR, the world's number one business talk, news and strategy radio network. I will never get there. It's really challenging. But today we are exploring how artificial intelligence is becoming an indispensable teammate for sales professionals, offering new ways of to enhance productivity and effectiveness with our panelists. So, with no further ado, let's go around the set and introduce everyone. While we're doing that, why don't you in the audience reach out to a friend, ping them, and have them join us. As you know, we strive to make the digital download an interactive experience, and audience participation is highly encouraged. So, Tim, would you like to kick us off?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Welcome, everybody, and I really appreciate you watching on this lovely sunny Friday in London. My name's Tim Hughes. I'm the CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignite. I'm also famous for writing the book Social Selling: Techniques to Influence Buyers and Changemakers.
Thank you, Tim. Richard?
Oh, good afternoon, everybody. Good to be here. Sunny here up in Cambridge. A relative newbie to social selling, but getting quite addicted to AI and what I believe it can do for us in terms of getting out there and telling a good story. So, yeah, delighted to be here and looking forward to a bit of interesting debate.
Excellent. Thank you, Richard. Adam?
Hi, everybody. I'm Adam Gray. I'm Tim's co-founder at DLA Ignite, and this should be a fascinating conversation. It seems that every day almost there are new ideas and new enhancements in AI, and just trying to keep abreast of those on an ongoing basis seems like it's a challenging thing to do because things are developing so quickly for the better, I hasten to add.
Mm-hmm. Indeed, yeah, absolutely. And myself, Bertrand Godillot, I am the founder and managing partner of Odysseus & Co., a very proud DLA Ignite partner. So, as I said, this week we're going to talk about practical ways of integrating AI into social selling. And that's my first question. And my first question is probably going to be for you, Tim. What are some of the practical ways of integrating AI into a social selling strategy?
I think in most cases, most people think straight away of content. Because what we do is, even though probably 10 years ago content marketing wasn't a thing, it's now become something. And I think people immediately think what I'll do is I won't write something, I'll actually get AI to create something. But I actually see, and I'm using AI throughout of the whole of the sales process, which is, I use social selling through the whole of the sales process. So recently I got tagged on an article which was in German, and I could have gone through the whole process of translating the article, reading the article, and coming up with a response. I just didn't. I just fed it into ChatGPT, and it came up with a response in English, which is what I wanted it in. So, the ability to use it through all of the sales process, I think, shouldn't be underestimated. And I think that I'm going to say something now, which I think that we'll probably end up talking about during the 50 minutes, which is it's not about prompt writing. Prompt writing is interesting, and a kind of I know people have brought out books recently about prompt writing in sales, and it's like, that you should have brought that book out about 3 years ago, because it's not the case now, because of the fact that AI has developed so much that actually it's an ongoing conversation. And I want to make a point which is my AI is, there's a lot of talk about the fact that AI is a digital twin or an assistant. My AI, I mean, you know, we have conversations, not from a what you're doing this evening conversation, but in terms of you know, forwards and back, you know, how about this? What do you think about this? Have you thought about change it to a bit like this? And it flows through this conversation. So I mean, I use AI. I'd use AI every day. As I say, I use it all the way through the sales process, and I think all salespeople should do that.
Well, that's certainly a common, a great stuff. That yes, you know, content is really the play, and we have plenty of different agents, to be honest. At least, you know, that's my case, especially because I've got these two languages. So clearly on translations, I've got an agent.
Yeah.
Clearly
I mean, my life is far easier than yours, because all I do is I speak in English, whereas you have far more complexity because of the fact that you're having to speak in English and French.
That's right. So you know, so we talked about, and we'll come back to this, but I like the idea of, and we all like the idea of the teammate. So that we're no longer basically talking to a tool, but we're talking to a colleague, and we're trying to make that collaboration fruitful. Which basically means that you need to share quite a lot of yourself to get where we need to be. Adam, any comments on this?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that your summary there, yeah, it's an AI teammate, but like a real teammate, you need to train the teammate. You know, if you hired somebody that didn't know anything about your business and they came in and you said, right, off you go, you need to write me some expert content about this, and you need to distill this down and give me a one-page summary of it and stuff, it would be a ludicrous assumption to make. So why would the assumption be any different with AI? And I think that one of the things that is really interesting, that, you know, we as a team have all been through the process of this, as Tim said, you know, this backwards and forwards conversation with AI, asking it for what you want, coaching it on what it gives you, refining that, and then often editing it yourself and then giving it back and saying, no, this is what I meant. And it's saying, oh, right, I see what you've done there. Mm-hmm. And I think that this process is a process where many people fall down in how they're thinking about using AI at the moment. So it's very easy to say to ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude or whatever, very easy to say, I would like you to write me a blog about this. And it can do that. Of course it can. And often the blog will, from a content perspective, be quite good. But from a voice perspective, it won't be you. So why ask AI to write you a blog when the marketing team can write you a blog, or someone else can write you a blog, none of which are ever going to get read? So it's about getting it to speak as if it were you, from a content perspective. But as we said at the beginning, you know, it's more than just a content creation, though, isn't it? You know, there are so many other things that you can do with this.
Yeah, I agree with that. Richard, what's your what's your current point of view on this? You know, what's your experience?
I get quite addicted to it, because it's like all these things, you test it out on something and you think, wow, that's amazing. You know, I'll try something else, and then you know, I've spent several evenings where I've sat there not wanting to do anything to do with work, and sort of an hour and a half later, I'm still pumping sort of Chat GPT with a few more ideas that have come off the top of my head. But what I've kind of learned is that the more you put in, the better the content that comes out. You know, when I've got a pretty good idea about something that really needs just to be kind of sort of a bit more polished and perhaps sort of articulated in a more articulate way, then I'm really impressed with how it can sort of say what I'm trying to say better than I'm currently trying to say it. And then on the other side of the coin, I see stuff that's posted which has clearly just been regurgitated by AI. So, you've had a question, somebody's posed a question and basically told it to come back with something. And then it loses, that I think you can see through, what is sort of pure AI and what is somebody's work that has been sort of perfected by AI. That's how I see it, as both a user and a consumer of the content, a user in creating it and a user and a sort of a recipient of the content put out.
And clearly, there are AIs who are actually able to reverse engineer AI.
Yeah.
And tell you, this one is this one is 100% AI. This one is 100% human. This one is 50-50. I don't know.
Yeah.
Though we did try this out recently, just to share this with people, we did try this out recently internally, and we put some pieces that had been written by AI into a particular tool, and it says it had been written by a human.
But that was because we'd spent a long time coaching the AI to speak in our voices, wasn't it?
True.
So already it was sounding like you or me, not sounding like ChatGPT or another LLM.
And we'd taken out the dashes that the AI always puts in.
Mm-hmm. When we coach our customers, we go through a journey of that journey starts with their profile. I was wondering whether, because sometimes we face challenges for our customers to actually speak in their own voice about themselves, because speaking about yourself can be a bit of a challenge. And I was wondering, whether if I was just trying to giving a few inputs to an AI, it would actually storytell my professional journey, and I was wondering whether you had some inputs on that, some views on that. Maybe Adam on this.
Yeah, and this is really interesting, because up until very recently, I wouldn't exactly say I've been scared of AI, but I've been very skeptical about what AI can do. In as much as, well, I can do it better, and it doesn't take me a day to write a blog, so why would I use AI? But as my LinkedIn profile currently stands, the headline and the about section were written by AI. I spent a long time coaching it, but part of the process for me was around testing whether or not this was of a competent quality or not. And I think that part of the challenge that we have with AI is being able to divorce ourselves from what it is that we've created and look at it objectively. Because, I know what I want to say. AI didn't say it in quite the way that I wanted to say it. Does that make it worse or better, or just different? And actually, the only barometer for whether something's good is what does your audience think of it. So if you write a post and your audience loves it, and AI writes a post and your audience doesn't, the truth is reflected in the data, which is, your post was better. But if AI can be as good as you, given that you've coached it and controlled it, and the profile was a similar thing for me. But one of the areas that I find myself really defaulting to AI these days is in researching things. With the deep research available on Gemini, I find that it's able to pull together so many more strands than I ever would pull together for some background information. I mean, I could, but in 5 minutes, it trawls 40 websites and compresses them all into a single narrative around this stuff, and that's a week's worth of work for a person. So it's incredibly powerful for that, I find.
Yeah, clearly the deep research capability of Gemini, and we usually don't name tools, but this one is absolutely breathtaking, especially on competitive analysis. That is really impressive, and again, I agree. I mean, the number of sources is just absolutely tremendous, and would take weeks for us to put together. Clearly. So obviously, we can look at this from the other side of the fence and talk about authenticity. So I think we have always, and you talk about not being afraid, but maybe a bit reluctant. And I think that has to deal with the fear of, is it going to be my voice, or is it going to be, average, which by the way, statistically is what an AI would provide if you don't onboard it properly. And we can also talk about onboarding. But on that, any thoughts, Richard, on authenticity? Do you get something that looks like sounds like what you would write?
Well, interestingly enough, the other afternoon, I had a sort of a kind of sort of an idea came into my head, and I kind of sort of whacked it into AI, and I was, absolutely astounded with, how it kind of sort of quickly turned around that idea into something that was eminently plausible. And I presented to my wife and said, have a read of this. And she said, that's amazing. How did you manage to come up with something like that so quickly? And clearly that was through ChatGPT. And I think it, did quite a good job of using my turn of phrase, but that was because some of what I put in was very much using my turn of phrase. But in terms of, I think it's a combination. I think, from a research perspective, I see it as being, very, very useful. It adds to what I put together. But I also use it from, I try and have it ghostwrite like me. So I want it to sound authentic. I want it to sound like me. But I also want to edit it down so that I don't get all the sort of the fluff that kind of often dilutes the message you're trying to relay. And I think it goes back to what I said earlier. I think the more you put in, the more authentic it is. Once you start to kind of sort of rely too much on the tool, then the authenticity gets lost. That would be my view on it.
So, just out of interest, your wife was blown away when you showed her this thing. Did you tell her that it wasn't you, or did you take?
Well, I think she pretty quickly figured out.
She's known you for a long time.
Yeah. I mean, I say I'm addicted to the speed rather than to speed. Yeah, the speed with which it can turn around something that's good. But I would never. I'm never comfy to put something straight out. I think there's always something in there that, to me, would give the game away. Just the odd turn of phrase. This thing, and I do sometimes get a little bit disappointed. Sometimes stuff comes back, and I think that's. And I think we had this conversation a couple of weeks ago. I have got round to the point where I do ask if it can do better than that. Be a bit more authentic. So yeah. But it comes down. It's garbage in, garbage out. The more you put in terms of trying to get it to do what you want it to do, I think the more authentic your output will be.
But I think also, though, there's if you think about it as a tool that can do some of the donkey work that you don't have to or haven't got time to do. So the challenge is that you have a 20-page report and you haven't got time to read the 20-page report. So you can paste it into an AI tool and say, give me a summary of this, and include any key points, or particularly points that relate to A, B, C, D. And it'll come back with that in a page or half a page or 3 pages or whatever you've asked for. And I think that the opportunity that gives you, I mean, particularly in our line. So, we help organizations generate more meetings with that ideal customer profile. So whilst that's incredibly powerful for businesses, so you go from having one meeting every 3 weeks to having 3 meetings a day, it creates a problem in as much as in order for the meetings to land, you have to do a bit of research. You've got 3 weeks to research a customer. You've got plenty of time to do research. If you've got 2 hours, you haven't. So now there's a tool available to everybody to make the meeting actually land, because you can understand a little bit about what the company is that you're talking to, what their challenges are. And I think that this idea that in order to get the maximum from AI, we need to think outside the box and think laterally about what we're asking it to do, rather than just assume, well, it can do my work for me so I can sit on the terrace and have a martini. Because actually that's, in my experience, is not how the world works. You actually have to be smart about how you're using this stuff.
I think one of the things that people still mistake, or the mistake they make, is that they still think that social media is a sales platform. So if you think about, if you go onto LinkedIn, what people are telling you is that with AI, we can send hyper-personalized emails. So everybody in the world sends hyper-personalized emails. I get 10 spam emails a day, and all I do is I create rules to make sure that they forever go into my waste paper bin. So nobody is reading that stuff. And the feedback that I'm getting from sales leaders is that while email marketing was shite, which is a Northern English term for rubbish, it now doesn't work. And I hear of SDR teams that just don't use it anymore because there's so much. It's so easy to basically set up an AI and basically pump out shite that they don't do it anymore. So I think one of the things that people often think is that what I'm going to do is I'm going to use AI to go onto social media and pump as much shite as I can, because if I do that, people are going to buy. And we go back to the most fundamentals of social media, that social media is not a sales network, it's a social network. So there was a question there, what is social selling? Now, you'll get lots of different views about what social selling is. I was with somebody yesterday who their marketing team is posting brochures on social, and they're saying, and the marketing team is standing up in front of sales saying that they're social selling. So just to clarify, our definition of what social selling is, and I have it here because I have to read it. Our definition of social selling is using your presence and behavior on social media to build influence, make connections, grow relationships and trust, which leads to conversation and commercial interaction. So when we're talking here about social selling, we're not talking about going onto social and spamming people with lots of messages and basically trying to manipulate them to basically connect with us, for us to basically immediately pitch and say, do you want to buy a watch? Or here's a list of our products and services. Because my view, and certainly the data shows, that you'll get a very little response from that. And the more people that do it, the response will go from little to zero. So I think we need to be really careful about, when we talk about AI and about using it in a particular way, that people don't actually see this as, or us think that what we're telling people to do is to spam people until they're dead.
Yeah, clearly this is not our approach here, and nor our conviction. And that actually ties extremely nicely into my next question, which is about skill sets. So if you are to use AI in a social selling perspective, what do you think are the skill sets that you need to acquire? And
well, I think that in business today, just like I'm old enough to remember when the product before PowerPoint was introduced into the business, so PowerPoint and Excel, you have to, to work in business, you need to understand PowerPoint and Excel and Word. The same is that you need to understand ChatGPT. It's become part of the tool set that we need to use. But I would still say that soft skills, like an ability to actually storytell, is really, really important, which is why I storytold when I started talking about that. It's that ability to tell stories, because what we do is that we remember the stories, we don't remember the facts. And there's a whole bunch of things in terms of basic psychology around stories, which is so important to the way that we articulate things. And being social, I think, is a soft skill that you have to have. When Adam and I started the business 8.5 years ago, very few people were on social. Everybody is on social media now, and nobody ever argues that point. We used to have to justify, 59% of the world's population are on social, 60% are on the world. Now we just don't have to argue it, because we know that you're either on social or you're not taking part in the world as it is today. And so that's another soft skill, and understanding how to have conversations, and those conversations are no different from the way that we would work in normal life. You'd go up to somebody and say, "Hi, how you doing? Have you traveled far? The traffic was terrible today," and have conversations. And if someone holds the door open for you, you say thank you and stuff like that. Normal everyday things are still relevant on digital just as much as it is on analog.
Well, more so, because I think that the challenge is that the people that have spam called, and that's always the challenge, isn't it? In the old days, before the days of email, there was a limit to how many letters you could send to people, because there was
the cost of the stamp.
Yeah, cost to print it, cost to envelope it, time to do that, and cost to post it, which meant that you needed to be fairly well targeted with what you were doing. Then along came digital, and the distribution cost went down to zero. So the question was then, well, I'll just send it to everybody because some of them will buy. And in the early days, that was true. You would send out 1 million emails and you would get 10 times as many responses as if you sent out 100,000 emails, because actually people were quite pleased to get some of this newfangled digital communication. And then everybody jumps on that bandwagon. And now every one of us sees that we get dozens or hundreds of emails every single day, and the overwhelming majority of those are garbage. So we just automatically do what you do, Tim, which is set up a rule, or just bin them, or mark them as spam, or unsubscribe, or whatever the process is we go through to try to limit that stuff that comes in. And the challenge that has created, which I think that marketers haven't fully appreciated, is that 1 in 1,000 emails is great and you want to see it, and you miss it because you're too busy piling all of the junk into the rubbish bin. And unfortunately, now people have gone onto social to do that. So we see this kind of sending of in-mails as if that's magically going to be, if you've got a crappy message that you send by letter, or you send in an advert, or you send by email, and nobody responds, why are they going to respond if you send it via email? Well, clearly they're not. But now AI wants this hyper-personalized way of sending out messages to people. But if you haven't fundamentally understood what the interaction needs to look like, if you're still walking up to somebody in the street that you've never met before, putting out your hand and saying, "I'd like to help you with your investment strategy," they're going to walk away because they've no idea who you are. Mm-hmm. So using the tools such as AI to help you build human-to-human interactions, to have conversations with real people, to build rapport and trust and show interest in what it is that they're doing, is the key. But it requires people to give some thought to how they're applying these tools, rather than just pile them in there. Oh, AI can do that for me. Well, it'll only do what you tell it to do.
Well, there's always the temptation of the easy button, right?
Isn't it beautiful?
Yeah. I mean, I get emails from people, and clearly they've got. You can get templates off marketing profs. So just so everybody knows, if you go to marketing profs, you can get email templates. Except I get 5 emails from 5 different companies, all competitors, using the same template.
So what we're saying,
I mean, it just beggars belief why people think that somehow or other they're marketing.
What's the saying? A fool with a tool is still a fool.
It's still a fool, yeah.
And that kind of pretty much sums it up.
Saying fool is polite.
Yeah, and the thing is,
I was thinking of another word.
It amplifies the foolishness,
Oh, it does. I mean, these people are making idiots of themselves. I mean, I don't understand. Then they'll come back for you. Why haven't you responded to me? I mean, it's like, do you really think I need to? Do you think I'm going to waste my time?
I'm just circling back on this thing, this email. Did you get a chance to read my email?
Know who you are.
No.
You've written me a rubbish message which is meaningless. I don't even.
Tim, just bouncing this back to the top of your.
I mean, some of these people write it. I mean, I know my IT, but some of these people write in a language that I don't even understand. I mean, in English. I mean, it's like with all the funny little 3-letter. I mean, come on. At least write in simple English.
So clearly, the basic is, we want to create relationship, and what we're saying is that potentially, AI has the potential of augmenting ourselves, and make it easier for us to, or at least, from a maybe more scalable for us.
So Adam was saying something the other day, which I thought was great, which is that going back to first principles, you never get a second chance to make a first impression. So as an individual, if I reach out to somebody cold to basically in whatever way, what's going to happen to the person that I'm reaching out to is going to come back to me. They're going to look at my LinkedIn profile, and then they're going to make a decision about whether they should actually, because when you reach out to somebody, what you're doing is that you're giving control to them to make to say whether they're actually going to talk to you or not. So the first thing that you need to do if you're going to be active on social media is to have a good LinkedIn profile. And the thing about a good LinkedIn profile is it's not about me or what I think is a good LinkedIn profile, saying I've just been to President's Club and all of this. What we're doing is that we need to be thinking about what the buyer is thinking. So one of the things that we need is we need to have to pass go, to use a monopoly metaphor. To pass go, we need to have a good LinkedIn profile. And okay, so we could use AI to do that. Adam's actually been doing some trialing to his summary title and his summary, I think, is written by AI.
Yeah.
Though it's not just write me a LinkedIn summary. He's actually gone backwards and forwards with the conversation. Now, it's a fundamental thing to have on LinkedIn, and to do any form of, whether you're doing social selling or any selling. And what people have got to understand is that it's not about all of the things that they write. That I'm highly energetic, results orientated stuff, because it's meaningless. And again, what we're doing is that we're talking about being human. So what we've found, and our research shows, is that the more human that you are when you talk on your LinkedIn profile, which, remember, is your shop window to the world, the more human you are, the more people will lean into you. The more people are going to look at you and go, do you know, Richard looks really interesting. God, he not only is he a fighter pilot, but he knows something about cyber security. And so what happens is that we need to always remember that this isn't just about automating our stuff, but it's also about we need to still have those skills, because this is also about being human. Because the more human you are, the more people are going to want to talk to you, and the more people and conversations you're going to have.
Yeah,
and this is where there might be a little bit of a paradox, but
Absolutely.
I'll let Adam drive this.
I was going to say that I think that building a relationship on social is a fantastic parallel to the world of dating. It's been a long time since I've done any dating, but the point is that you have some key points during the dating process. So one of those is the first time you go out for a coffee or a drink or a meal with that person, the first time you're meeting them face to face. So the stuff that you do before that, you arrange you're going to meet them somewhere, or you're about to try to arrange you're going to meet them somewhere. So you check them out, first of all. You check they're not an axe murderer. You check they're not already married. You check all of this stuff. All of that's done in the background. But the point when you show up for the date, you have to show up, and you're relying on them showing up. If I went for a date and I sent Tim instead of me because he looks a bit like me, it's like it's going to be, it's not going to be a representation of what the person gets if they decide to go on a second date. But the reality is that this is often how people behave when they're using digital tools, isn't it? They think, I'll automate the conversation bit, I'll automate this, I'll send a blanket sort of message. And the point is that that's not how relationships work in any form.
So I'm actually going to answer one of the questions. But
maybe, hopefully that's the one.
So when I won't show the name. So my co-author, when we wrote this 9 years ago, my co-author was going through a divorce, and he said that I'm using all of the principles at the moment that were in our book to basically on dates. And I said, how's it working out? He says it's going really well. So there is actually a really good analogy between what we teach in social selling and dating. So Michelle.
Hi, Michelle.
Michelle. So when you connect with somebody, what do? You check them out. And when we build relationships with people, what do? We try and find something that's common. So the more that we can find that we have in common, the more that we can trust somebody. So you're highly unlikely, if I put out a message and say, here's the best glasses case in the world, you're unlikely to actually like or comment on that, because what will happen is that when you like or comment on it, immediately what I will do is send you a message saying, thanks for liking my post about my glasses case. Would you like to buy one? So you don't actually engage with it, because you know what's going to happen is you're going to get a pitch. If I basically post out something out there like, here's me with the kids and they're playing football, and you say, I've got kids as well, and they're always playing football as well, I can then say, so why don't we jump on a call? Because we've got something in common. You go, yeah, okay. Because we're not having a conversation about selling stuff. Now, the conversation may turn around and say, so what do you do? Well, I do this. And then you're going to turn around to me and say, so what do you do, Tim? And I've got an opportunity to pitch. But the fact of the matter is that you'll get more engagement and more conversations from personal posts on social media, because it's social media, than you will do than if you're putting out stuff on there about products and services and brochures and brochureware. And we've got data that backs this up.
Clearly, we do, and I think that's because that's always a question. What is the balance? And that goes a little bit of our topic. But what is the balance between the things that me with the cat, and me with the dog, and me in the forest, and me on Fridays with Fridays.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a colleague, and she's always a friend of mine who's always taking pictures. And here's me with the team in Italy, and here's me with the team in Singapore, and here's me. And it's like, do you actually ever do any work? The same as if you're actually, here's me having coffee with Bertrand, and here's me having coffee with Richard, and it's like, do you actually do anything? So you've got to make sure that you're getting you're making sure that if you're putting stuff out, people jump to conclusions. And if you're always putting posts out there that you're always on the beach, people are just going to assume that you spend all the time on the beach. But you will find that the more personal stuff that you put out, the more people will lean in and engage with you.
And I think we all have that the data that backs this up in terms of performance.
Well, you have
Bertrand,
because you took all of it. Bertrand took all of his posts, got all of the engagement, put it in a spreadsheet, put it into ChatGPT, and said which is the best posts, and they're all personal posts, the best ones.
Exactly. Pretty straightforward, and there is obviously an explanation to this. Why? Because this is personal. You're telling a story. I mean, all the things we already discussed. So, and by the way, when we talk about onboarding your AI teammate, that is quite I think a good idea to actually feed your conversation with stuff you've written and the performance of the stuff.
So as this is turning into a Q&A with Michelle Hoskin, I'll answer the next question, which is, how does vulnerability play? Yeah, it plays a point. I would agree with you, Michelle. I think people are creating vulnerability posts in ChatGPT and putting them out because what they're doing is that they found out that they or that there's someone somewhere there will be a list of headlines. I've made this big mistake. All of those sort of things, which seem to
resigned.
I resigned. This is the mistake, and they're all clickbait headlines. And I think in most cases you can see there's a particular format where they've been written, and they've all been done in ChatGPT. But they're getting engagement for those people. I guess quite often what happens is that content goes in ebbs and flows, and what you'll find is that a whole load of people will put those out, and then gradually people will get bored, and it will flow off, and then those people will complain they've got.
I think the other thing is, though, that being authentic is about being authentic. So I've had a really bad day today. Everything's gone wrong, and my wife's left me, and the dog's died. Okay, it's okay to share that post. It's okay to share. This is the worst this is the worst day of my life because all of these things have happened. Because we all go through times like that when things are not going well, and often our community. I remember when I had cancer, I did a post about it, and you said, Tim, you need to print out all the comments you've got because there's an awful lot of love there. So every time you're feeling down, you can then refer back to that and you can read all of those comments. And I think that this is the thing that a lot of people don't get, is that they do that and they have a vulnerable post. They get a huge amount of engagement on the post. And then the next post is also a vulnerable post, and the next one and the next one. And it moves them from being somebody that's a credible professional person that's having a bad day or has had an incident in their life through to being somebody whose life is a car crash. And the problem with that is that that's not somebody that you want to do business with, because they're wrapped up in their own problems. And we're all wrapped up in our problems, whatever those problems may be, but actually leading with that is not what people actually want. And, ultimately, less for you, Bertrand, but for the rest of us, we're English, British, so, how are you today? I'm fine, thank you. How are you? Is the correct answer.
Well, in French, we say not too bad.
Not too bad, all things considered.
So my post today was about a post that I saw on LinkedIn last week, which is where somebody had a sales lead who had basically put out something saying that they were recruiting, and he reckoned he had the top team, and so he put out a photo of the team, and they were all holding arms like this, and they were all white, and they were all male, and because they were holding arms like this, it came across in America they call it bro culture. So I actually had females coming to me saying, I would never work at that place. I would never work at that. I would never work at that company, and I would never work for that individual. And clearly, he didn't realize. And this is just one of these things where we get a lot of these questions. It's like, why is nobody teaching people how to use social media? We're taught how to use. When you go and join a company, you're taught how to use health and safety, how to put a ladder up. You're taught how to make sure that you say the right things in terms of working with people from different backgrounds and stuff. But you're never taught how to actually use social. And here's an individual from a well-known household brand, basically putting out racist posts, not knowingly racist, but putting out a post saying, come and work for my company. We're a whole bunch of white, old blokes. So one of those things you need to be really, really careful about, because we're talking about the different posts and personal posts. You need to be really careful about what you're putting out, because AI won't ultimately give you they'll give you the answer that you want. So if you're going in and asking for ultimately, which is a white male response, you're going to get a white male answer.
I guess the thing there is, Tim, he's at least being authentic, if it's working against him.
Yeah. Well, exactly.
And that's kind
He
of
is being authentic.
in a way that proves the point that, you know, it is the authenticity that does it for you. Whether it works in your favor or against you is another matter. But I think that's where, you know, social is really valuable. It kind of sort of separates the wheat from the chaff, really, doesn't it?
Bertrand.
Yeah, no, I was just thinking about, you know, what but by design, AI will give you an average. I mean, if you don't train it, or if you don't fine tune it, it will give you an average answer. And if the goal of the post is to generate reactions and not even talking about engagement, I'm just talking reactions. So your ultimate goal is to go viral. Then I think we're missing the point with respect to social selling, because what we're actually looking for is creating relationships. So we're looking for engaging content, not necessarily viral.
We're not looking for virality. No,
and actually not at all.
No, because
so that's.
I mean, people say to me, "So what should you be measuring in social?" And the answer is two things. One is the number of meetings you have, and two is the amount of revenue that you close. It's no different from you know the number of meetings you have, the number of proposals you put out, the number of revenue you close. It's no different from any other time. Now, likes and comments are important because the engagement is a opportunity for you to have conversations. You know, you need to know how to harvest that engagement so you can have conversations. But at the end of the day, it's the sales hasn't changed.
For sure, it didn't.
That was a question I was going to ask Adam for a moment, and it's gone out of my head. I can't remember what it was.
But I'm sure he's got the question.
There was a soapbox
that goes with
I know that he always gets on. So I was going to ask him some soapbox.
Yeah, but we've just had a comment in from Matthew.
Right.
What about growth hacking?
There's lots of reaction
and selling with an AI teammate. I must just say, for the record, the term growth hacking is one of the things that I hate more in business than anything else in terms of a phrase for something. And kind of growth hacking, the idea that you're taking a shortcut between where you are now and where you want to be, is like organizations that claim they're going to be a viral, you know, we're a viral marketing agency. We create posts that go viral. No agency can claim to be a viral agency, none at all, because whether something goes viral is not within their remit. They can't control that, because that's about whether or not other people engage with the content. So you can create good content, but you can't claim it to go viral. And like growth hacking, yeah, at the end of the day, if you've got the right product at the right price, at the right time, in front of the right people, you're likely to be able to grow faster than if you haven't got all of those pieces in place. But the way that you get to growth hack is by having lots of conversations with the people that you want to be talking to. And AI should be the route to enable you to be able to have more of those human-to-human interactions and conversations with the people that you want to. And this idea, and we had another comment from someone earlier about advertising. You know, the problem with advertising is that you're pushing your content in front of somebody. They haven't asked for it. If they haven't asked for it, they're not going to engage with it. So sending a brochure, advertising to people, outbound cold calling, outbound emailing. The problem with all of this stuff is that if I haven't opened the door to you, you have no control over what happens next. I can ignore you or not. And the chances are that I'm not going to engage with your content because I don't want your content.
Airbnb is a business to consumer organization.
Yes, for the record,
I don't deal in a business consumer. It's not. I deal in business to business.
Yeah, and they've got a very simple offer, Airbnb, haven't they? You know, it's a room or a flat somewhere that you want to go and visit. And I think, Bertrand, your summary of where social selling works for people is if they have something that they can't describe in under a minute, then they need to have a conversation. It can't be sold from an advert. And yeah, we've all bought rucksacks and belts and training shoes from Instagram, because you flick through and you go, oh, that's okay, it's $100, I'll get that. But actually, for strategic large value purchases, it doesn't work that way.
And I think that quite often mistake an up market for a down market. So quite often what you'll find is there's a lot of people when we're in an up market going like this, and they're saying, we're selling loads of stuff. Well, yes, because loads of people are buying.
Yeah.
But we're currently in a down market. And therefore, quite often what you'll find is that people are trying to use up market techniques in a down market, and it just doesn't work.
Yeah. Evidenced by the fact that so many people are being laid off at the moment.
Yeah. So Robert Taylor has basically asked the question: what drives the best direct messages to meetings? And by the way, Robert, thank you so much for tuning in, because he tunes in an awful lot and leaves lots of comments. Rob. And thank you for that. And I want to say that. So the first and foremost, the first thing you got to remember with social is that the person that you're going to send a message to is they're going to check you out. So the first thing is that you need to have a profile that that person is going to go, that person looks interesting. So your profile is your shop window to the world, and 1.1 billion people walk past it every single day. The second thing about sending messages to people is that this is human. You can get ChatGPT to write it for you, but I bet they won't do it properly. Which is, you've got to remember that the person that you're connecting to it's a human, and you need to show that you're interested in them, not that you're going to try and sell them something. Because as soon as you say that you're going to try and sell something, people just run away. So a lot of people, there's a big debate out there. The number one debate out there at the moment is, should you send a message? And everybody says you shouldn't put a message in. And the reason for that is what they're going to do is connect and immediately pitch. Because if you put a message in, people go, I know why you're going to, and won't accept. So the number one thing that you should do is if everyone zigs, you need to zag. So the first thing that you need to do is you need to put a message in. And that message is, if I'm going to connect with Richard, that message needs to be Richard-centric. Hey, Richard, I read your post about the fact that you're doing some work with a aircraft company. That sounds really interesting. I'm currently got my father to drive a Spitfire. Can we connect? Richard, first and foremost, if you flatter him and show that there's that level of connection, everybody will connect. Mm. And using our benchmark, our clients are getting usually between 60 and 80% acceptance rate on connection requests. So that gives anybody who's watching that a benchmark in terms of what you should be getting. It's possible to get that sort of level. So that answers your question, Robert. And thank you for tuning in.
And we have one last question, maybe. I think this one is interesting. So we already discussed that a while ago. I think almost a year ago, on digital avatars. So our thoughts on digital avatars.
What is our thoughts on digital avatars, Bertrand?
Do we have some thoughts on that? Well, I don't know. I trust we do.
Do we have any thoughts on digital avatars, Adam?
We certainly do.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the thing with digital avatars, like anything else in this space, is there is a potential for good. I don't mean for like the greater good of mankind, but I mean there's a potential for them to provide value for people. There is also the potential for abuse. And the key thing is, and I think the key thing that everybody should always be asking as the first question before they deploy a tool, whether that's AI or automation or whatever, is, would this be better, like a better experience for the person that I'm having the engagement with, or better outcomes for me? Would it be better if I did this or I got the tool to do this? So for research, yeah, absolutely better for AI to do it, because it can cover much more ground more quickly and more accurately than I can. For having a conversation, probably not.
And that's it's exactly the same with it. I think is the mindset. The mindset is about augmentation. So is this something that is actually helping you scaling without compromising the relationship-driven type of approach that we have. And that is true for working with your AI teammate, and that is true for working with an avatar, which is another mode of AI. At least that's where I stand today. I've been quite impressed, by the way, by the avatars. Yes, we have to close this, and that is painful. But we will be back. We will be back, and I'd like to thank our panelists today for a great session, and the audience whose participation is absolutely outstanding. So thank you so much. We now have a newsletter, by the way, so don't miss an episode. Get the show insights, get the show highlights, and beyond the show insights, and reminders of upcoming episodes. You may scan the QR code on screen or visit us at digitaldownload.live/newsletter. Thank you so much, guys. Have a great weekend on a sunny and a sunny weekend. Apparently.
And before we close out, Bertrand, if people would like to come on the show, what they need to do is they should send you a message, shouldn't they?
A direct message on LinkedIn.
Yes.
That's the best way to move forward. Thank you so much.
Cool.
Thank you, guys.